Laurel Duquette, Director of Global Media and Entertainment at Snapchat. Welcome to Marketing Girly.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on and talk all about your career journey. You have been at Snapchat for 9 years,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah. I'll go on my 10-year anniversary in November,
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's flying.
That is so exciting. I think it's always really fun to talk to somebody that's been at a company for a long time because I just feel like it's more rare and rare because we see a lot of job hopping. So I'm excited to talk about your career growth at Snapchat, what you're doing, and all about the media and entertainment space. So we've got lots to get through. But before we get started, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. As you said, Laurel Duquette. So I run our entertainment team at Snapchat, and we cover theatrical marketing and media, streaming, linear TV, music. I've been there, yeah, going on 9.5 years. I've been in the entertainment space for probably the last 20 years, which I know you're thinking, but how did you start when you were 10?
Yes,
Right?
that's exactly what I was
That's
thinking.
exactly what you're thinking. Um, and yeah, it's been an amazing career journey at Snap. I tend to stay at companies for a long time. So even before Snap, I was at Microsoft for 7.5 years. And outside of work, I have two kids. So I'm a working parent. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Oh my gosh, they're young.
Yes.
So you're
Yes. Well, see,
busy.
I feel like they're like teens now, but so I think too, part of my career journey and evolution has been striking a balance between, work and personal life. And I think that applies to everyone because everyone has a life outside of work as well.
Yeah.
So finding the balance with that.
Okay, amazing. Well, I've got lots I want to dig into, but I want to start by just for those of us who use Snapchat, but we're like, what do you mean there's media and entertainment? Like, can you explain how that is part of what us everyday consumers see as a social media
Yeah,
platform?
absolutely. I feel like I have this conversation with my family because they're like, "Can you tell me exactly what you do?" I'm not sure I follow. So my team is an advertising sales team, which means that we help our advertising and marketing partners find audiences and opportunities on our platform. So we have different ad products that run throughout the platform. And I think what differentiates Snap, and I'm a consumer too, so I use all of the platforms, is that the creative itself or the advertisement tends to feel more organic and bespoke to how people like you and me use platforms every day. So it's really about identifying what are advertisers' upcoming needs, whether it's a movie that's coming out or a new original streaming series or a TV premiere. We help marketers drive brand awareness on our platform, and then not to get into like the nitty gritty of like a media consumer funnel. But I think what Snapchat does well is also connect the dots of you saw an amazing trailer and you want to share it with friends. You can do that on Snap. You could also plan a night together, right? You could buy movie tickets. So I think when we think about the platform, you have sort of like brand awareness, but you can also move through the funnel and subscribe to a streaming series or buy a movie ticket. So
All
our
through Snapchat?
our platform helps that consumer
Okay.
journey.
Okay, amazing. Super interesting to hear. And I know briefly we were talking before that you guys recently worked with Wicked. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes, of course. Of course, I love all of my children equally. We have an amazing partnership with Universal Pictures, and we launched a brand new ad product. It's called Sponsored Snap. For folks that aren't familiar with our ad jargon, it really means ads in chat. So when you're messaging your friends on Snapchat, Wicked partnered with us to launch our very first one. And it was especially fun because it was my boyfriend, Jonathan Bailey, delivering a message to our Snapchat
You're
community
kidding.
in chat.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's not, I'm married and he's not my husband. I
If
wish,
only.
if only. But yeah. So, and I think entertainment is one of those special verticals and industries that is a first mover and they embrace this idea of like early access and early opportunity,
Mhm.
even though, the product is still being finesse. So that was an amazing partnership that we did for Wicked.
Okay, amazing. So I feel like I got a better understanding of your role now. So really interesting to hear that. And I know a lot of marketing girlies would love to work in the entertainment space. You mentioned that you've been in the entertainment space for about 20 years. Can you talk to me? Like, did you always know you wanted to work in the entertainment industry? How did you get started in it?
No, I feel like if I was giving anyone career advice, it would be like, try a lot of different things and
Mhm.
see like what feels right and energizes you. The only thing I will say is I've always been not a movie buff, but a movie goer. I've always loved movies, the theater, the smell of
I
popcorn.
still love it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, and also, I mean, I think everyone watches streaming content.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say like that's always been a part of my personality. And I've always had like this creative outlet. And I think that that is something that my job enables me to do too, like
Yeah.
brainstorming ideas. How do you find innovation amidst like today's clutter? And so I think that those things were always sort of natural to who I was. Um, I think it was a product of me um, moving back home to LA. I grew up in LA and I spent about 10 years in Seattle. And when I moved back, there was basically 2 verticals at the time at Microsoft, and it was like autos and entertainment. And it was a serendipitous fit because I just loved the whole process of entertainment and the planning cadence and, kind of getting an early look with your marketing and advertising partners, like here is what we need to bring to consumers. Like, how can you help us do that?
Okay, so was Microsoft your first introduction to the entertainment industry?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, interesting. I also love that your exposure or your career in entertainment wasn't at direct entertainment companies like we would think about,
Right.
which I think is really interesting for people to hear. Like, you might really want to work in entertainment, fashion, beauty, but that doesn't always mean you have to work at an entertainment or fashion or beauty brand. There's sometimes other outlets where you can still get into that industry.
Absolutely. And I think as like a younger professional, I did kind of try lots of different things like consumer research and, more like tech and like platforms and products. But I do feel like you got to kind of see what feels right, like what energizes you at the end of the day. So you spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do love that advice of the best way to figure out what you want to do is to first figure out what you don't want to do. And the best way to do that is to try a bunch of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So was you started your entertainment career or your exposure to entertainment at Microsoft. Can you give me like a quick overview of what your time there looked like?
Yeah. So I was at Microsoft for about 7.5 years. I worked as an account manager. An account manager is a pretty um I think well-known title in like the media advertising world, which is I always saw it as captain of the ship. So, you launch campaigns, you're looking to make sure campaigns have delivered, you're finding opportunities for partners. I started as an account manager and then I moved into an account executive, which is really more of like the quarterback of the team. And it's identifying long term opportunities, understanding client portfolios, how decisions are made, how to connect your advertising partner with the products and roadmap that you're working on. And so I spent a lot of time kind of honing those skills there at Microsoft. And it's a great transition because at the time it was 90,000 employees,
Oh my
right? And it
gosh.
was just like this sort of big, you know, bureaucratic corporate company. And so my transition to Snap was quite the transition because that was when Snap hadn't gone public. It was very entrepreneurial. It was just past the startup
How
phase.
many employees at that time?
I'm guessing like maybe in the 2000 range.
Okay, so big shift from Microsoft.
Huge
Yeah.
shift. And I think that's also something I like about Snap. Even now, I think we're close to 6,000 employees. It is a lean, strappy, hardworking culture. And what I like about that is you're really invited to brainstorm and proactively suggest ideas or product concepts. And I think that there was just so much innovation and agility and the speed in which things moved. And when I was at Microsoft, I remember, you know, using the first like Snapchat dog lens. And it's so funny
Oh
that
my gosh,
this,
everyone, I remember that too.
well, it's the whole like 2016 like trend right now. And like that was the first lens I used. Right. And so look at this like all coming full circle
That is
today.
actually that was 2016?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was just, and it was like the hottest place to work and no one could get a job there. And I remember getting recommended by entertainment clients for that role.
Mm.
And so, um, yeah, it was super exciting new space. Obviously, it was like mobile only. And so I think a lot of what I learned at Microsoft and my career journey has helped apply itself during, when I started at Snap and what that journey has looked like for me.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you've been at Snap for quite some time and you've had quite the career there. I we probably can't touch in depth on every single promotion that you've had, but do you kind of want to give us like an overview of like well actually let's just start with where did you start? What was your entrance at Snap?
So my entrance was an account executive, a salesperson
Mm-hmm.
in layman's terms, and I was managing two of our studio accounts.
And one thing, because we're here obviously for podcast for marketing girlies, is sometimes, especially within ads, sales and marketing are very close or they're overlapping or they're hand in hand. So, can you speak maybe a little bit to this like sales aspect of your role that kind of also is combined with marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is really all marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when you think about advertising partners, I sort of think of it in two buckets. One is the marketing and creative component, and the other piece is like the media operation sort of planning that need to come together. Um, I would say that the marketing component is really like this high level creative vision, and there's so many things that kind of come under that umbrella. Um, for our team, it's really figuring out how to work with marketers early enough and proactively enough and close enough so that their priorities that they're working on are things that you just begin organically collaborating on. Does
Okay.
that help answer your question?
It's the reason that I ask it is because I know when we get into these like account manager type roles, people are like, well, is that sales? Is that marketing? Like, but I am kind of getting what you're saying is it's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
Exactly. A good sales team
Yeah.
is an extension of your client's goals.
Hmm.
And all clients operate from goals and plans from a marketing perspective of like, how are we going to bring this film to life? And so I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. And if somebody is like, this job sounds so cool, I would love to do that someday. What do you think is one skill that they should focus in on building?
Wow. I think if you're interested in an advertising and media career, this isn't answering the question, but I'll get there, I promise,
Okay.
is understanding the ecosystem. I always recommend that people work at an agency, a media agency, because you literally see everything. Even like on a podcast set, right? It's like there's so many things that go into it. And it's kind of like your training grounds to understand the media world and how it works and marketing direction and phasing and timelines and execution. Um, I would say the number one skill, though, is probably creative ideation. It's being able to connect vision that is both your own and for your company with a partners. And I think some of the many reasons I've stayed at Snap and enjoyed working at Snap is that it really enables creativity. And I think that's why media partners rely on Snap is that we're providing more creative ways for them to educate and let consumers know what's coming up.
Yeah, I love that answer. And I also think that's exciting. I think somebody that's like, oh my gosh, that would be so much fun to be able to get to combine both that data side that comes with the paid media, but also that creative vision,
Yes.
which is awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so you start your career at Snapchat there, and you obviously stayed for some time. So, kind of what did your career growth look like at Snap?
Yes. So I started as an account executive. And what I'll say about my time there, which I'm sure is pretty similar to people that have stayed at other companies for the like a similar duration of time, is that to me, it kind of feels like four distinct chapters, like four really different phases. It's like pre IPO, post IPO, launching new systems, like an auction, for instance. And so I started there. I moved into kind of a player coach role. I think leadership was like, let's see if she can do this. Um, so I managed my book of business while also coaching a few other folks on the team,
Coaching them on what?
coaching them almost like coaching them on how to like best do their jobs,
Okay.
right? Like an interim manager for them,
Okay. Almost
right?
like a mentor?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
mentor. It was called a player coach.
Okay.
It's basically like you have two jobs, but
Okay.
it's a lot of opportunity to learn. And I will say I learned so much doing that.
So
Like
tell me what you learned about leadership because I think this is something that I know a lot of marketing girlies want to grow into is right. You got the job that you love, amazing, and then you want to step into leadership. So what did you learn about leadership at that time?
prioritization.
Mm.
Um, when your plate is always going to be full and you don't want to be the person that says yes too much or no too much. And so I think it's like finding the balance. So it was prioritizing my time. Where can I drive the most impact? Which team member needs the most support? What do I need to get done on my immediate book of business? Um, so that was a big part of it. I also think it was um, being much more long term focused. I think that so often we're like, what do I have this week or this month or this quarter? And one of the things I learned about in this player coach role was, you know, we have a runway of things that are semi predictable that you can start to plan for now. And so I think it was like, how does that long term vision kind of set you up and set up your career and help you sort of think outside of like what you have going on that week?
Okay, interesting. And so this is your kind of start to leadership, and obviously you're in a much higher position now. So what was the next step? You do this player coach role, then what?
So I did that and then I moved officially into a manager role. So that was nice because I had like a more concrete focus of, you know, individual contributors that were on my team and so supporting them. The biggest thing I learned about that transition is no one is going to do it the way you do it. And that's not what makes a good team. What makes a good team is really like embracing the idea that everyone operates differently. And that's what makes an amazing team is diversity and thought and culture and ways of working. And so one of the things I had to learn was, okay, I wouldn't have done it that way. But you know what? Like that's working for you.
Mhm.
And you're going to do your best work having independence and autonomy. And so I think that was a big lesson in moving into a leadership role. Um, and I think also it was figuring out the right way to support each person individually. I think you really have to calibrate your approach to like that individual. It's never a one size fits all. And so, sort of like, how do you kind of curate and customize the way you support your team based on each individual?
Yeah. Is that something that, like, at the start you started? Because I've even found myself doing this with my team where, let's say they write something and then I edit it so it's my style that I like things to be written in, but then I'm learning, like, well, doesn't necessarily mean that the way they did it was bad, it's just different.
Totally. No, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And I
Yeah.
think that you have to decide, is this going to impact the business in any sort of negative way? And generally it won't,
Mhm.
right? Giving people the runway, to find their own sort of path, and then balancing that with, okay, and where can I step in and coach, and where can I help, you know, enhance your effectiveness, right, in your day to day.
Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson, and I think for leaders, I'm sure, because especially when you're first promoted, you wanna do an amazing job, so I'm sure you wanted to, like, look at everything your team was doing and make sure it was great, and then part of that process is like, "Okay, well, I can trust them to do a good job on their own."
Well, it's good segue because I would it's like you've known me for like 10 years plus. I in my early days, yeah, you're in the weeds,
Yeah.
and what I found is, it takes each leader like their own time to develop their own leadership style. But as you progress in your career, maybe your team gets larger or your book of business gets larger, like you just don't have the bandwidth to operate that way. And so that was something I definitely experienced at Snap, which was, we had just this like rocket ship of growth and the team was growing, and I had to adjust my style to support the needs of the team and also to support the needs of the business.
Mhm.
And so there was this concept that I've shared with my team, which is like being able to tolerate and like sit with the discomfort of knowing there will always be something left that you didn't do.
That's a good lesson.
Right.
That's a good one, I like that.
Right. And because it's
Yeah.
like I mean, you could work all day, every day, and
Yeah.
still there is something. So it's like, how do you use your time and then know, like, oof, I wish I'd crossed that off my list, but I'll get to that.
The list never ends is really the lesson.
Yeah. And the other thing I
Yeah.
learned is like, it's okay to make mistakes.
Mhm.
Like the amount of typos in an email but like I had to get that note out, right? And I think it's having some grace with yourself as you move into these different roles and levels. Like, how do you get done what you need to get done? Um, but also make space that like you're still learning too, and you're a human being.
Yeah, I know my type A girlies struggle with that. I wanna get every single thing done, but yeah, if you are prioritizing correctly, then you won't get everything done because you're gonna spend your time on the things that matter most, not on all the things.
Yes, yes. And you can also move too fast,
Mhm.
right? And I certainly experienced that where it was like go, 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 go. And then you might have a team member or a client who felt like, you didn't give it like its due diligence of time. And so I think it's also recognizing where and when to slow down, take a beat, and then come back to something.
Mhm, absolutely. And then where in this timeline did Snap IPO? Had it already IPO'd or are we still building to that?
It had IPO'd,
Okay.
um, and we built an auction, which is like a media term, but it basically means that when you're buying media on our platform, it will now be automated through a tool. And before that, I mean, it like makes me feel like Mad Men vibes. Like it was like a paper IO that like you would sign, like, yes,
Really?
like that's how it used to work. And, in some ways you were very clear on there is some transactional, work being part of your job. And then it moves to really empowering your clients to
Mhm.
manage the buying through our tools. And your job changes. You become a consultant. You have to understand, a more technical background of like how to troubleshoot and how to have eyes on campaigns and What does that look like? And also training your clients who are like, no, I'll just send the IO, you know? So you become a like a consultant in the way that like you're coaching your clients. Like, let me walk you through how this tool works. This is what needs to happen in order for your campaign to launch and so on. And so I would say that was another evolution of my time at Snap, which was moving into a more technical focused role as a leader. And that was new to me, right? It's like for the marketing girlies, I want you to know that you start somewhere, right? Like you have to start learning somewhere. And I think that sometimes there's this expectation or maybe like aspirational message that you somehow will be good at something or know how to do it or someone has more experience. It's like everyone starts somewhere. And that was certainly true for me, which was, understanding more of the sort of technical underbelly of like an advertising world. And I think that that was a transition in the last 10 years for me and the team.
And always like that you are still learning even though you've been at that company doesn't mean that you are stopping learning new things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this might be like too provocative, but I feel like if you're not learning anymore, then it's time for you to find a new opportunity.
Mhm.
Almost every single day, there's a new challenge. And it's not necessarily like with your own company, but it could be the industry, the landscape, like all of these like merger and acquisitions. You're always learning about like new ways to navigate the path forward. So I think that that's been, kind of an emblem of my time at Snap too, which is that it's always evolving.
Mhm. And then how about you within leadership of being a woman who is also like you constantly kept moving up in your career, you kept getting in these leadership positions and I know at least for me personally, like I'm passionate about like sometimes as women we have to do things that I'm not sure if you're familiar with like likability or likability
Of
trap.
course.
Well, then you are know that sometimes the things that we have to do to advocate for ourselves can make us like less likable. So how did you kind of navigate that through your career of still, being driven, wanting to move forward and moving up, and then also balancing kind of that aspect as you wanted to keep growing at
Yeah.
Snap? Yeah.
I mean, I think the concept of the imposter syndrome is so familiar. And I certainly felt that as I navigated my career. A couple things I'll say. One is the importance of mentorship. So I think having someone that you trust and respect, ideally outside of your immediate remit, is really important. The second piece is allyship. So, what I mean by that is having male and female mentors and sources of support that can help you navigate really challenging circumstances. So, it might be a family friend, it might be an old colleague, it might be a former boss, someone that's invested in you that you can get guidance from outside of your, immediate world. I think for me, as a woman, that's been super important. Um, and it goes both ways, which is I have a responsibility to also champion other people and help them navigate their career. And so I try and find the balance in that if I'm asking maybe a leader in a different organization for their time into how to navigate that. I also want to champion others that are in a similar circumstance. So I think those have been important. Um, and I think also for me, it like we just came back from a sales conference and we were talking about this. So it's really top of mind for me, but it's this concept of radical candor.
Mm.
And I think the ability to give feedback, even if it's hard feedback to give, has been especially critical for me and my career at Snap, which is being able to say, like, this didn't work for me. This is my solution. Um, because I think then in turn, people feel like they can give you feedback too, and that you're open to receiving it. So I think those have been some of the things that like I've relied on.
Talk to me more about radical candor.
Yeah, it's the idea of, um, when you said the piece about like wanting to be liked and needing to be pleasant. And if you're not, you're B or whatever.
Mhm.
And there is such a balance you can strike. You can be pleasantly direct and respectfully firm. And those concepts to me have been important because, for lack of better words, it gives you a little bit more of a backbone. It's sort of like, here's my boundaries respectfully. And it goes upward, inward, outward, right? It's the idea that you are honest with yourself and honest with others. Um, the other piece, which I think I personally have had to navigate, is how do you do that without an emotional charge? And I think that women, at least for me, I've experienced that. Like, I'm so upset about, this change on the team or this change in the process. And what I found was like it never felt productive to lead with like an emotional charge, and to try and distill it down to like, this is how it impacts my team. This is how it impacts the business. And then I'll say that's also balanced with also just being a human being and saying, and by the way, those are the business impacts. And it's like also annoying. And I'm allowed to have feelings and say, these are the things that make it tough to do our jobs.
Yeah.
So it's like being real, but having a balance.
Yeah. I think that's really important to hear. And I also, on the emotional charge, I like that word there, emotional charge. At least for me, sometimes when something happens and I am emotional about it, just feeling like, yeah, you're feeling really angry or whatever. I just always like to wait. Like, I'm just like, let me just wait before I say anything to anybody. And then
That-
oftentimes you just like cool down after 30 minutes.
yeah,
And that's human. That's men and women are feeling those things.
totally. I
Yeah.
love that. I've also like written it all down, and it can be like everything that goes down, but it's not sent.
That's a good one. Yes. Or you write
Right?
the email, but then you delete it.
Yeah. Like I've either written it down, and it's like if I really feel strongly, I can like put pen to paper.
Mhm.
And then generally I'll read it like a day or two later, and I'm like, whew, glad I didn't send that. Right. But having an outlet and also giving your time to process that. Like, I
Mhm.
think, not to make this like a therapy session, but I do think sometimes when you have like a strong emotional reaction to something, there's a reason for it. So I always encourage people to think about like what that is
Mhm.
and how to maybe compartmentalize some of that from like, at the end of the day, here's what I need to get done
Yeah.
and what's going to be my best path forward.
Yeah, I love that. And then going on to like the candidness and aligning that with likability, I do know, I mean, I struggle with it. I know friends struggle with it. Like it's scary to go tell your boss that you are upset with this thing. Or I loved how you said too, like sharing your boundaries. And I think that the more honest you are and the more that you do share how you feel, it builds trust because then people know, like, oh, I know exactly what she's thinking or what she's feeling. And I honestly think being more candid is going to also get you more respect and also earn your trust from your leadership.
Totally. Establishing trust and credibility are so important. And at the end of the day, we're all humans,
Yeah.
right? And so I think like leading with humanity is super, super important.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And obviously for you, like I think speaking to somebody who's built herself and grown at like such a huge company is also super, super impressive. Do you have advice for female leaders who are currently really trying to grow in leadership?
Thank you. That's so nice. I do. I feel like my session today is like a series of sayings. I'm like, am my mom right now. So, oh my God. But I do think you get into work what you put into work. So, even when I talked about my player coach experience at Snap, I remember having colleagues that were like, you know, you're essentially doing 2 jobs, but getting paid for one? Like, how do you feel like that's an asset or a benefit to you? And that's where that long-term thinking comes into play. It's like, yes, it might be temporarily more work, but I am expanding so much of my skill set that frankly needs it. And that time helped me transition later into a manager role. And so I think it's um, expressing curiosity, um, asking, to be considered for future projects. My 99th saying for this morning is if you don't ask, you'll definitely never get it.
Mm.
So having the courage to ask, um, being leaned in, giving feedback, even if it's like unsolicited, I think you start to demonstrate you're leaned in and someone says, wow, Laurel asked a lot of questions, really curious, had some decent ideas. Why don't we see if she'd be interested in, joining this task force to run this team or whatever it might be. And so I think it's the more you put into what your company is doing or what you're hoping to get out of it, the more you get out of it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and I don't want to confuse it with loading up your plate and like
Mhm.
working endlessly, but being prescriptive around, I'm interested, I'm going to lean in, I'm going to put my phone down and I'm going to close my laptop and listen intently and be thoughtful and send follow-ups because like that's interesting to me.
Yeah. I also think, like, I do love that you get out what you put in. It's obviously for anything in life. And it's not just about, yeah, loading up your plate with a ton of work. It's doing the work that is aligned with your growth, right? So, like, that coaching felt like it was expanding you because you were learning a new skill. But if you were doing 2 jobs and the second job was like admin tasks,
Well,
that wouldn't
right,
be worth
don't do
it.
that. Right. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. Like be selective and
Yeah.
and prioritize your time, but do the things that are going to help you and that are meaningful to you and that you want to do.
Yeah, I almost think like it's a selfish thing sometimes to do for your career of like take on the extra responsibility at work for you. Like, yes, to help your company and to grow, but like selfishly, that's an amazing opportunity for you to grow, for you to learn a new skill. And especially if you're young in your career, I think the number one thing you can prioritize is learning. And that's also, I'm assuming, a thread here in why you stayed at Snap is because you felt that learning. And that's really, really what's going to take you far in your career.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So, I know we're kind of skipping around in your journey at Snap, but do you wanna take us to how you ended up getting this director level position?
Sure, sure. So I moved into a manager role, and I would say during my time there, I had a really incredible manager who made sure my experiences were diverse. So,
Mm.
it's like, hey, you're working on X, Y, and Z accounts, but and you're comfortable with them and you know the business, but why don't you work on this brand new book of business and learn about
Mm.
different assets of the business? And so,
Well, let me actually stop you because that's a good point. So if somebody is looking to make that higher level move, then I'm assuming something that they should start to value is diversifying what their experience is.
absolutely, even though it is outside of your comfort zone and it is
Mhm.
more work to learn, it's so important and it makes you more well-rounded and more connected and everyone operates differently.
Mm.
So I did that and so by by really like the last, I don't know, maybe like 3rd or 4th year in a manager role and she actually promoted me to a senior manager, I had really sort of touched the entire ecosystem of the entertainment team.
Yeah, I think that's just such great advice because yeah, you're comfortable in your lane. You're doing really a great job at what you're doing. And to step outside and do something that you're maybe not going to be really great at first or expose yourself to new things, like you said, feels uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
helped you with your later career progression.
Yeah, and I think it also helped me as a leader because you work with new individuals. So you're like, wow, I don't know you in the way that I knew my former team. So how do we carve out a plan together? How can I best support you?
Mhm.
Um, so I did work across the whole book of business. And then in last year, our Team had quite a few of changes within the organization. Um, and I was covering just streaming. So I had a new leader who was like, I want you to focus on our streaming business. You've done such a good job with X, Y, and Z accounts. And so I started like a new vertical at Snap, which was all focused on streaming. So when I say streaming, I mean like um, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Amazon Prime Video, Netflix, etc. Which was a more technical business. Um, and I did miss my studio partners and the movie launches. But it was also when you talk about like kind of exploring new avenues and learning. I mean, this was sort of like, what is our, 1, 2 year, 3 year strategy?
What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really exciting. And I got to hire new folks on the team and really build out the team. And we had, some big challenges to overcome, sort of like the end of the streaming wars and all of this.
Streaming has been it's been crazy.
I
It's still
know.
crazy in the news right now with everything that's going on.
I know, like, that should be, like, the next reality show is,
Truly.
like, how they've totally. Um, so I think too, like, that was so new, navigating that, and then last year, our teams combined, and so we moved the theatrical business and TV, with streaming, and then we added the music label business, and so I moved into that role last year, and was promoted in September of last year.
Oh my gosh, so relatively recent as when we're recording this. So
Totally.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. I think too it was this larger remit and had to do all the things that we've just talked about, which is like reprioritize, rescope what needs to happen. How do you balance your time with the larger volume? And I have to say, you know, so much of the success of the vertical is the team, an incredible team. And um, I think their work really showed for itself. And so as much as I was promoted, I feel like it's largely in part to just having like working with incredible people and just having an amazing support system at work.
Yeah. Well, how did that feel for you getting to this level? Because I imagine that's something you worked for a really long time in your career. So when this merger happened, where you got to also, you mentioned you loved your entertainment clients, you got to work back with them and kind of have this new role. What did that feel like for you?
To be honest, it felt overwhelming at first. Um, I think it's something I always aspired to do is to run our entertainment vertical. Um, but it was a lot overwhelming. It was thinking about things differently. What does our vertical need internally in terms of support or product needs? What does our team need externally? My goal as a leader at Snap and really if I was a leader anywhere else is to cultivate a culture where people want to be on your team
I
and
love
people
that.
feel proud to be on your team and people, you know, want to spend their time with a group of people that like empower them and they feel challenged by. And so I felt really proud of the team, overwhelmed, and also just like immense gratitude because I felt like I had worked really hard to
Yeah.
land here.
Yeah. And looking back at your almost 10 years at Snap, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of my resilience.
Mm.
I think working in tech is challenging. I always said, even from like my first days at Snap, they're like, what's the hardest part of your job? And the hardest part of my job was always keeping up. Like there was so much change. Um, I'm really proud of my resilience in navigating just how much change there's been. Um, navigating, all the stuff you have happen in your personal life and finding balance and support at work. And I'm proud of the folks on my team as we've kind of like moved through a lot of progress and challenge and wins together. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be resilient. And um, what I've found is like when you can have that grit, I mean, being uncomfortable, I mean, just pushes you into a really productive area that I promise pays dividends.
I really resonate with that answer. I would agree with my even my own personal self of looking back on my career and where I am now, like, the number one thing I'm proud of is not giving up.
Yeah.
And I also think that's vulnerable for you to share of, like, there maybe were times when you were like, "This is so hard, like, is this for me?" Or I don't wanna speak for you or anything,
1
but
million, but all those things are true.
yeah,
Like, it's not all perfect at all times. Like, you have really, really hard things that happen.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think never giving up is so important.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people can also maybe relate to that, or if you're even in the thick of it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hard." I love what you said there of, like, when you make it through to the other side, you look back and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that was so worth it." But sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to kind of be like, "Oh my gosh, when am I gonna get through this?" Or when am I gonna feel like, "Oh my gosh, I'm glad I did this."
Well, that's something I cover with my team too, which is, I mean, it's like a cultural thing too, though. It's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Like, what did you do? What are you doing next? And so I make it a huge point of reflection and acknowledgement, right? Like at the end of a successful quarter, it's sort of like, this is what we did together.
Yeah.
Take pause
Yeah.
because it wasn't easy,
Yeah.
but this is what we did. And certainly we can look forward. But I think that's important too, is that reflection.
That's super important to take that moment, yeah, to pause and to sit in it and be like, "Okay, I know we want 5,000,000 other things, but let's look back at what we have already accomplished."
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And then in terms of resilience, how do you feel like that skill that you built in your career has translated to your personal life?
Well, I think I part of it is like becoming a mom. Like you have to be really resilient because there's no like there's no handbook. Nothing goes as you want it to. I remember someone like telling me that when I was pregnant, like, oh, the first piece of advice I'm going to give you is like you have no control. And as someone who is like a little bit more type A, I was like, I don't like that advice. I reject that
Like,
advice.
take it back.
But like it's so true. I'm like, take it back now. But it's so true. But it kind of helps condition you to be resilient because you're like, okay, we have this like fabulous vacation planned and it's all I'm looking forward to. And then child comes home with like stomach bug and you all get it. And you're like, oh my God. Like, we spent all this money on this. I need this for like my soul. And you kind of start to get conditioned. It's like you roll with the punches. It's
Mhm.
like, this is in my control. This is out of my control. Um, I think it's been particularly rewarding to like impart some of that resilience or like growth mindset to my daughter.
Yeah.
Right? It's like kind of, it's like you remember being a kid and you remember these hard moments. And I mean, my parents never talked to me about like feelings or like how to navigate, school drama.
Mhm.
And I feel like, I've kind of helped my kids manage through some of that with a growth mindset.
Yeah. I love
And
that you were saying growth mindset too. I'm a big believer. You read the book by yeah, Angela, yeah. Amazing.
yeah, and it's like, you know, things go wrong in your
Yeah.
personal life. And it doesn't have to be because you're a working parent or married or not. It's like things go awry, you have family stuff, friend stuff. Um, but you get through it.
Mhm.
You get through it. And I think that it's the same thing at work, right? Like you get through some of these big challenges and you've then built a muscle. So the next time it happens, you're a little more equipped to manage it. And
Yeah.
it's not easy, but it might be easier to tolerate.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an underrated skill, and I love that resilience, and I ask about your like, how it translates to your personal life because I do think a lot of those skills that you work really hard and you build in your career, and even that confidence that you build can definitely translate over in other ways in your life that you might not expect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, well, we've chatted about so much through your career, and it's just been so inspiring getting to hear your story and what you learned along the way. Do you have any last advice you want to give to the marketing girlies?
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for intently listening and all of the great questions and listening to me talk about myself for like an hour.
So much fun.
I love it. Um, I would just say my biggest piece of advice is to be curious. Raise your hand. It's like I don't want to say lean in because it's so cliche, but like lean in. Um, because those are the things that like help you in all ways. Personally, professionally, all the things.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on Marketing Girly. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.